So first of all, then, growing up in an area like Middlesbrough, how did you first find your interest in football initially?
I was quite lucky, really, that my brother was a footballer before me. So I think what happened basically was me and my brother, who was older than me, a couple of years older than me, Neil, that we were annoying my mum and dad that much when my dad worked away that my mum was left with us both, and we were kicking obviously the ball against the garage and smashing windows and doing things we shouldn't do. So my mum sent us both over to Martin when it originally formed at the cricket club. Obviously, he didn't have any teams; it was just Saturday morning training. So he's 2 years older than me, so we both went. We were both able to do it. He ended up joining the team, and I just got a love for it. It was something that I really enjoyed doing. It was something that I was pretty good at. You know what I mean? The attributes and the things that I had at the time were quite different to what other people had. So yeah, that's how it started, and loved it. And obviously, when Martin were able to form a team of my own age, it was a nice little progression that I could always emulate and copy, and I knew what was coming because obviously my brother had done it 2 years previously. So it was nice, really.
And from an early age, then, when you started playing at that level, were you kind of given any guidance, or were you told that you had something different, or did you not know at that stage?
Listen, I think all the way through my career, I've never been, I'd say, gifted, talented wise, ability. I'd say one thing I had, which nobody could live with, was obviously my pace, and still to this day, that I still probably class myself as pretty quick. But when I was a young kid, before obviously I signed for Middlesbrough, and obviously going through my early career, that's one thing that nobody could ever copy, replicate, and keep up with, really. So it was always something that I could keep in my armour. It's not something you can train on. You can work on your touch, you can work on your skills, you can work on various things in your game, but that was just a natural given talent. So I utilised it to my effect and use it as much as I can.
Yeah. And was the two teams back then like there is in terms of Martin FC, Martin All Drive, or was it just one club?
No, we just had one, but they didn't have like there is now, and about 5-a-side, 7-a-side, 9-a-side, 11-a-side. It was just straight into 11-a-side, big goals. So obviously we ended up scoring a lot of goals all the time because the goals were bigger. You used to shoot and it used to go in, but it was balls over the top. It was obviously with pace and stuff, and kids were frightened to death of pace, like older people are. You know what I mean, when they see a young player. But at that age, it was quite easy, and we had a lot of successes as a young team, and obviously that got noticed by the Keith Nobles of this world, the Ron Bones of this world, and then it went on. Other scouts came around as well, so it was nice to be recognised by being successful.
So you said the scouts there recognised you when you were playing. Did you stay with Martin throughout when you were playing when you were younger? Was it Martin you were at when they found you, type of thing?
Yeah, so I was at Martin all the way through. So I'd never left. I was always there. Obviously played for my school, played for the area, which was Langbar at the time, because Langbar was obviously Cleveland through where you went to school, which was Nunthorpe. But I got first scouted by Southampton, so I went to Southampton on trial. I got taken down there. Obviously, Alan Shearer was there, Neil Maddison was there as younger players, which was great. And you're mingling with all those kind of guys. There was a lot of North East based players over there, so it was nice to go down, and it felt home from home. And when I came back, by the time I'd came back and I got off the train and I went home, I had Ron Bourne, which was obviously the main player in the youth team at Middlesbrough, was around the house asking me to sign schoolboy forms at Middlesbrough. So once he was there and he was asking that, there was no real decision to make. It was something that I wanted. I just didn't think it was going to happen, and when he did offer me that, I was never going to turn it down. So
what feeling did you get when you went to Southampton then? Did you feel it was somewhere?
I just felt wanted. I felt as though that I could put a marker down to be my own player. They obviously liked me for my talents. You know what I mean? They were going to look after me because they were taking me down the other end of the country. It felt like a real big club. You know, it felt like it was going to go places, and obviously the North East players were there. They had North East scouts, and it was great. I had a really family feel about it, which was nice. But obviously when came back and Ron offered me the schoolboy contract up till I was 16 years old, till I left school. I took it with both hands, because it was an opportunity to get that YHS when I was 16, and I was always aiming towards that.
So obviously you made the decision to sign for Middlesbrough. Was that solely based on the fact that, like a lot of people in this area, you want to grow up and play for Boro? Was it solely based on that?
Yeah, just the one and only. That was my own decision. That I remember when Ron was in the house and he said it to my dad, and my dad said, he's just been to Southampton, he did really well. They want to offer him a contract. We don't know how the length. And I just said, listen, my dream is to play for Middlesbrough. You know what I mean? That's the only thing I've ever wanted to do. I want to stand on the whole gate like Bernie. I want to play for my hometown club. I want to be a hero. I want to follow on the legacy of what other people have done. And that was our first and foremost. So, you know what I mean? From 14 to 16, that's all I tried. And I've seen loads of players come and go. I've seen loads of heartache, loads of upset. And it was all about getting that contract when I left school at 16.
Yeah, and you've also seen a lot of incredible players as well, especially when you were coming through there. It was a fantastic team. Who stood out for you when you were there, you know, in training, watching them prepare for training or whatever? Who was it that you took notes from?
Obviously, being an attacking player, you know what I mean, John Hendry. Obviously, Jan, when he signed the year before, at Essen Park time, and Uwe Fuchs and Paul Wilkinson and Ian Baird and all those guys. You know what I mean? When you try and be them and try, all I did is just try and take little snippets. You know what I mean? Like John Hendry had the pace. You know what I mean? Stuart Ripley was a winger. You know what I mean? I took little bits from those because they were quick. You know what I mean? That Stuart Ripley's crossing was amazing. John Hendry's dribble past people, but could still finish. Bernie's finishing in the box. You know what I mean? He was offside loads, and I was offside quite a bit towards the end. You know what I mean? Towards my end of time at Middlesbrough. But I think that's because of the way that I played. He always played on the shoulder. I played on my shoulder. So I tried to emulate and copy certain bits from people because, you know what I mean, it worked for them. So if it works for them, why fix it if it's not broke? You know, that if you can take little snippets from different people, then surely you're going to come out of it smelling the roses sometimes.
And obviously you were a very young player as well when you signed for Middlesbrough. How were you feeling about turning up for that first day of training, or who were you so anxious to meet?
Well, it was Brian Robson for me because I was obviously an England fan. You know what I mean? I grew up watching England, watching the Premier League, and obviously when he signed for Middlesbrough, obviously as manager the season before, and then I got offered with YTS, and we were training at Essen Park. We didn't even have a training ground at the time. There was obviously Hurst was getting built. We trained at Prisick Base, we trained at Hull Drive, we trained at the beach, we trained at Essen Park, we trained all over the place. And the gaffer used to join in with training with the youth team on an afternoon. So I remember our first day, we didn't train on the morning, which I thought we were going to. We did jobs all day. We got to know certain things. We watched the first team train from the whole gate or from the North Stand and from other areas from Essen Park. And then we trained on the afternoon, and the gaffer came in and joined us, and I was a little bit like, Jesus, this is just unbelievable that you were scared to make a bad pass. You were scared to tackle him. You were scared to do anything wrong. You know what I mean? But he was just a lovely fella, and you know what I mean. He was the best player on the pitch by a country mile. You know what I mean? That was just the first thing that stood out. You know what I mean? He was the best footballer. He wanted to win. It was just a game of five-a-side. He didn't want to lose. He was a born winner. And I thought, you know what? I want to progress this. I want to be in his plans. I want to impress him. So you know what I mean? I made a decision from that day that I want to play for the youth team. I want to play for the reserves. You know what I mean? And then see where it goes, because I knew the progression with me. Obviously, my brother had done that 2 years previous, so I knew what my progressions and where I needed to impress certain people at the right time.
Yeah, and it progressed quite quickly for you as well, didn't it? Because am I right in saying you made your first appearance at the age of 16?
I was 16, and so many days. Yeah, I think it was about 40 days before my 17th birthday.
Yeah, and how did that feel as a 16-year-old making your first appearance for Boro?
I was scared stiff. It was exciting at the time. You know what I mean? I remember being told I was subbing John Pick at the time. Obviously, really close to him. Obviously, God rest his soul. He was a lovely man. He sat next to me in the team meeting, and the gaffer's named the team against Sheffield Wednesday. He's named the subs. I was sat there doing jobs at the time, and he's named me on the bench. And John was sat there next to me. He just put his arm around me and just said, "Listen, you'll come on today because we'll be winning. You know what I mean? I've got every faith in the team that the manager's picked, and you'll get an opportunity, and it's down to you to take it." He said, "No one deserves a chance more than you." And I had so much belief in what I had to do. You know, it was obviously a Friday night game. It was Good Friday, I think. Sky live on Sky. Sell out of the Riverside. Obviously, Chris Freestone made his full debut. He scored. I think Jan scored another couple, and then I came on with about 8 minutes to go, and it was the longest 8 minutes I think I've ever played. It was. I got a few touches. To be fair, it was nice. I watched the video back a few times. Didn't get the ball away. You know, I didn't get the ball away once in the time I was on, which is so pleasing and so strange for a young lad, because I did a couple of straight passes, but the ball ended up getting where I wanted. I didn't kick it properly, put it into a channel which somebody got, and it was nice, and I was very raw. And you know what I mean? I watched it back now, and you know what I mean? It gives me so much pride. You know what I mean? Because I got brought down to earth straight away. That the game finished at, I think it was 9 o'clock or whatever, 9:15, and I was cleaning boots, cleaning the change rooms before I had to go home. You know, so it was like a baptism of fire straight away that I'd gone from making my Premier League debut 1 second to then cleaning boots straight after, which I didn't mind because, you know what I mean, I love the club, and you know what I mean, it wasn't anything that I lived the dream and I wanted to do it, but that gave me such an appetite to go and do it again, and go and do it again, and go and do it again. And obviously my next progression was my full debut, which happened obviously the following week, which was just a dream which no one can ever take it away.
Yeah. So after making your first appearance off the bench, how quickly was the discussion after that of, you know, you're going to be starting the next game?
No one had the discussion with me. It was done behind the scenes. It was, you know, I mean, an interesting story behind the game was, obviously we played Liverpool the following weekend away from home, and I shared a room in the hotel with Jan, which was great experience for me. We watched Question of Sport, and Jan answered all the questions. He was just a head full of knowledge. He was great. He was great to be around. I was bouncing ideas off him, and we had a conversation. I remember this because I remember like it was yesterday. He'd never played at Anfield before, so he was really excited, thinking he was going to make his first full game, his first game at Anfield, and things. Obviously, it was Ian Rush's last game ever. So obviously there was loads on the game, and what I didn't know is Brian Robson had rung my mum and dad on the Friday and told them that I was starting, so told them to go to the game, not to tell me. So when I spoke to my dad on the morning of the game, like I always would, and my mum, they didn't say they were in Liverpool. They didn't say they were going to the game. They didn't give me any inkling at all. We got to the change rooms at Liverpool, and the manager named the team. He put me in the starting 11. He put Jan on the bench. It was a little bit uncomfortable for half an hour until Jan obviously came over, and he was great. You know, and he got me through the warm up. But then obviously the mistake from the kit man that he hadn't put a shirt in for me because the manager hadn't told him. The manager hadn't told him that I was starting. So I didn't have a shirt with my name on the back. They had to ring the Premier League for special dispensation to play with a blank shirt if they could find one. So the manager went hunting around Liverpool for Middlesbrough fans somewhere to swap his match-worn shirt, which he wasn't wearing that day, and got me a blank one, which obviously I've got to the day, which still doesn't have my name on it because I just refused to put it on because I only wore it the once, and that was the shirt which was never ever going to leave me.
Looking back now, although your mum and dad didn't tell you what they knew about you starting that game, was there any kind of did they give you any subtle kind of nuggets or anything, or little bits of advice before going into the game that you might not have clicked on at the time?
But my dad just say, listen. He said, the chances are you'll get on. You know what I mean? And listen, he said, savour every minute. You know, he said, it's Ian Rush's last game. He said, the Cop. He said, Anfield. He said, I'd been there previously to watch Middlesbrough. I went twice in my lifetime to watch Middlesbrough. We got walloped every time. It was always a nice place to go because you always got to see loads of goals. And you know what I mean, with John Barnes and Ian Rush and John Aldridge. You know what I mean? It was always a nice place to go and get a family atmosphere and stuff. But I remember the Guard of Honour when Rushy came out with his kids and. Walking down the old tunnel at Anfield with, you know what I mean, with a badge on, and that was really, really scary. Obviously coming down and coming out and thinking, this is real, you know what I mean, this is real, and shaking people's hands in the line, which I'd never done before. You know what I mean, this is all something new. This is something that you never get used to. And I remember the handshake from Neil Ruddock, and he just said, "You're mine today," and I just thought, well, yeah, whatever. You know, what I mean, like you do. And,
you're not like.
And he was. To be honest, he gave me the hardest afternoon I think I'd ever had in football. But I grew up in I think I played 70, 71 minutes. So I came off just as Stan Collymore scored, and he grabbed me, he punched me, he pinned me down, he kicked me, he did everything to me. And then after the game, he bought me a pint, which was obviously credit to the man. And he was honest. He said, "Listen, this is the hardest game. One of the hardest games of the season you've given me." He said, "You ran the channels. I hate that." He said, "You got hold of the ball. He said, you were lively." I was just more gutted I couldn't drink the pint because the gaffer wouldn't let me. I was still 16. He wouldn't let me drink it. So I don't know where. Razor probably drunk that, but no, it was a moment in my life which, you know, I mean, not many 16-year-olds get an opportunity to play for the club, but to play at Anfield, to play in Rush's last game, it was loads of boxes ticked that afternoon, which can never be relived.
Absolutely, and of course that must be one of them. But what would you say was kind of the major highlight of your Boro career looking back?
Oh, obviously scored 2 goals against Man United, which were, you know what I mean. Listen, I talk about cliches, I talk about living the dream, and I talk about things like that. You know what I mean. To play against Man United, to score against Man United at the Riverside FA Cup to knock them out. The game when we got beat 4-3. You know, it was probably one of the most famous games in the Premier League, apart from obviously the Liverpool, Newcastle games. But my first goal for me. Against Sunderland in the, I don't know if I think it might be the Coca-Cola Cup back then. You know, it's been called everything on it since. But yeah, I watched it the other day because someone's doing a poster for me about the goal and having the commentary. And the commentary for me is better because it's Ali. You know what I mean? Ali's
Yeah.
screaming and Bernie. You know what I mean? It means so much because I had like a father-son relationship with Ali. He used to be great with me. He used to go to his house. He used to, you know what I mean? I used to obviously do a lot for Boro TV and stuff and do a lot for the radio. And then obviously listening to the words that he said about me, which I didn't know about until obviously you watch the game later on, or you know what I mean, or you listen to it, because obviously with it being the radio, now it's on YouTube and the radio's been linked to it. So it's like now, if I could just speak to him and just thank him for the kind words that he used to say on some of the commentaries and the games and stuff, it's iconic. And just that always sticks out. It sticks out here because it's my first goal in a local derby in a full house, but more so probably because some of the things that he said about me, which was just obviously terrific at the time.
Absolutely, yeah. And like you were saying there, you know, you hear the words that the likes of Ali Brown would say about you when you're playing over the radio and such. But when you were playing, there wasn't social media and everything like that about, was there? So you couldn't have access all the time to what people were saying. How much harder do you think it is for footballers now who have to deal with that type of thing?
No. Outrageous. I'll be honest, I think I would have struggled. I think I would have struggled more with the way that the culture was when I played. You know, it was obviously a drinking culture. There was a socialising culture. I would have got myself in a lot of trouble. I'll be honest. I'm not, you know what I mean, that we socialise quite regular, weekends through the week. There's so much pressure on players now, you know what I mean? They can go out the house, go shopping, driving cars, you know what I mean, on the mobile phones, if they're socialising, you know what I mean? You're out with your family and someone's sticking a camera phone straight in your face. It's just the way of the world. But the thing is, what goes with that is they're very well paid for it as well. You know what I mean? So it gives them an opportunity to have an unbelievable lifestyle, but the pressure on them, and some fall by the wayside because of it. You know, it's not great. You know, I think if there's one thing that I think it should ease off a little bit is the pressure on young players with social media, because you see young players obviously getting racial abuse at the minute on social media. You see, obviously, people, the amount of followers. What comes with followers is pressure, you know, because it's not just your own team, it's other people who follow you. If you're English, you know, you just watch an England game there, that so much pressure on young players' shoulders now to go and perform week in, week out. You know, you can't afford a bad game or you're a bad player. You start getting stick over social media, and you know what I mean, people that can have a pop at you. You know what I mean? The only people who could have a pop on at me was talkings after a game live on the radio, which you get an hour window. And if you get through that hour window, you're safe for the rest of the week, which is great. Newspapers, which there's only one person who ever says anything about you. So, you know what I mean? If they've got a bad opinion about you, you look at the positives and say, listen, I'll prove him wrong, or it's only one person. You know what I mean? Whereas social media could be 3 million people saying the same thing. You know what I mean? That I hate the pressure on young people, and that's footballers and non-footballers, by the way. You know what I mean? Children growing up with social media could be a disaster, really.
Absolutely. And just taking it back to your playing career now, then. I know that you moved to Cardiff City, didn't you, after a successful club there? And I know at the time, Lenny Lawrence was the manager, wasn't he, at Cardiff? Yeah. Was there any connection? Obviously, he was a former Boro manager. Is there any connection there between why you decided to move to Cardiff?
Yeah, well, Lenny signed me at Middlesbrough when I was 14, and obviously he was manager until the gaffer took over, Brian Robson. So Lenny was director of football when I got a phone call from Alan Cork. Alan Cork was a manager at Cardiff City at the time, ex-Wimbledon Cup winner, and he got the sack after the Wigan game, and I was all due to sign on the Sunday, the day after. So Lenny rang me up on the Sunday night and said, I'm going to take over. It's going to be announced on Monday. He said, I want you to sign on Monday for the game on Tuesday at Huddersfield. So I didn't have to think about it, because Lenny was he's like a dad to me. You know what I mean? And he always has been. He still is now. You know what I mean? If I see him now, I'd give him a cuddle and I'd you know what I mean, and tell him how much I think about him, because he's just a genuinely nice guy. You know that I stayed an extra year at Cardiff for him, for nobody else. I should have walked. I should have left, but you know I stayed for him and give him the opportunity, because he asked me to stay, and I don't regret it, because you know I was doing a good service to a football club, which I fell in love with, and for a manager who I would have ran through a brick wall too. But you know what I mean, I signed for him, and we used to always come up and down, because obviously his family was still in Middlesbrough as well. So we drove up a couple of times together, and drove back together, and sometimes on the same flight back from Bristol back to Newcastle as well. So it was we seemed to be living in each other's pockets for a good year until I moved down fully, really, which was nice. I think it's important that you go all in when you sign a football club. Time for a team. You know what I mean? That forget all this rubbish that you're not allowed to kiss the badge and you're not celebrating because it's your old team. If you sign for a football club, it's your job. And you know what I mean? My daughter was born in Cardiff. I signed there for 4.5 years, and I seen 4.25 years out of that contract because I signed that deal. You know, I didn't want to leave for the last half a year. I wanted to see it out, and every time I wore that blue shirt or the red shirt, whatever colour we had on, I ran through a brick wall for the club and the supporters, and loved my time there. You know what I mean? It reminded me of playing for Middlesbrough. You know what I mean? Essen Park was like Ninian Park. Obviously we wore red, they wore blue. It was, you know what I mean? It was. We trained in a local park. You know what I mean? There was so many reasons to not fall in love with the place, but I did because it just reminded me of everything that I grew up in Middlesbrough. So it wasn't like I was starstruck or, you know what I mean? I'd left something in the Premier League and I was dropping down. There was a plan in place at Cardiff with Sam Aman and with Lenny and stuff that they wanted to get the Premier League, and I bought into it. I really bought into it and thought, you know what I mean? They've got an opportunity, and you know what I mean? That came to fruition. Obviously, we got promoted in 2003. Obviously to the Championship, and we probably could have got promoted the season after as well, but we just fell short of the playoffs. Yeah, love the club, love the supporters. Have been great with me, great with my family, and yeah, I hope it continues. You know, that obviously scored the winning goal in the playoff final, and I remember leaving, and I remember one of my good friends. He said, listen, that goal will never be forgotten, and you just think, behave yourself. You know what I mean? Everyone says that when you leave. You know what I mean? You're a hero until you go, and then you're forgotten about. That goal's more famous now, 17, 18 years down the line, than it was the day it happened. You know what I mean? Because people just won't forget it. And every time I go back, I went back 3 years ago, the day they got promoted against Ipswich. It was the worst game ever. But I met one of my friends in Costa on the morning of the game, and there was 3,000 people in Costa. It was outrageous just because they heard I was going there, and it was just to see him. All I was doing was just going to have a coffee, and it took me. The police had to look after my car outside. I couldn't get through. It took me an hour and a half to get through. I spent 15 minutes having a cup of coffee, and it took me an hour and a half to get back out to go to the game. It was madness. It was absolutely crazy, but just shows how fanatical and how passionate football fans can be.
Cardiff folklore.
I don't know. It's mad. It's mad, mate. I say it. Madness.
And just touching on post-playing career now as well. So you had, when you stopped playing, you went into management afterwards, didn't you, in non-league football. What was your decision making behind that? Then what made you want to go in, especially at that level of the game as well?
Well, it wasn't really my ideal choice. I wanted to continue playing as long as I could, and I think I was about 30. I think I was about 35, 36, and I was coming to the end. I was struggling, recovering after games. So you know what I mean. I thought, well, I'm going to have to play semi-pro. So I was playing for Whitby and dropping down, and then I was playing for one of my friends, Conrad Hillaby, at Norton Stockton Ancients, and obviously Mick Mulligan was the chairman, and I think I played one game under Conrad. He got the sack. Seems to follow me around that. And Mick offered me the job after the game, and I thought, no, there's so many reasons to not take it. So I thought about them all for about 48 hours, and then there's just one niggling thing. Thought this might be this one opportunity that you never get again. So just give it a go. You might be good at it. You might enjoy it. If you hate it, then you can just pack it in and carry on playing. You know what I mean? You've still got another couple of years left. So I give it a go. I was useless at it for the first 6 months. We got relegated. And then the following season, after I was able to bring in my own players, my own coaching staff, and really have a good pre-season, we got promoted. We won a cup. We had a solid season the season after. I got a progression to a better team, which the grass isn't always greener. And I probably wish I'd stayed where I was, because I didn't really enjoy it. You know what I mean? It was the club that I enjoyed playing for, not, you know what I mean, the stepping up and more pressure, bigger budgets, bigger egos with players. You know what I mean? It's not an easy job. It's a part-time job, but a full-time job at the same time. You know what I mean? Players ring you up 24 hours a day, looking for players, scouting for players, and so different to playing that I get this 90-minute window where I'm stood next to the touchline and trying to get a result, and just hoping that you get that win. Whereas as a player, you can do something about it. As a manager, I found as I was just useless at being able to hide my emotions. You know what I mean? I got myself in a lot of trouble because I wore my heart on my sleeve a couple of times and said some things I shouldn't, to players, to managers, to referees, to supporters and things. But I think it was probably because my standards were up there and some of the players weren't. They were a little bit down there, and I don't regret it. I give it a go, but I won't be doing it again. I'll be honest. I wore the T-shirt. I've got my fingers burnt, and I enjoy talking about it and watching games. But as I say, I got my boots back on probably about a year after I left, and still playing now. So it's all worked out well, really, for me.
I know you said there as well, the players, you know, you went from playing from players up there to down there in the non-league. What other challenges were presented by going down at that level, you know, just in management or around the ground?
Well, everything really, you know what I mean. The expectations, you know what I mean. Obviously, the budgets, you know what I mean. I'm not gonna sit here and name names and name people, but I met a player in a service station to sign him on. I agreed to pay him £50 a week, cash in hand, which is decent money. You know what I mean. Considering he's got a decent job and just to play on a Saturday and kick a ball about, you know what I mean. And we agreed to sign. By the time we drove off, 5 minutes later, we'd signed for someone else for £55. And I was just that made me think. This isn't for me, you know, that I'm not wasting my time for people who don't have respect for other people, you know. I was always quite honourable that I sign a contract with somebody, I stick by it. If I tell someone I'm going to sign, I'm just do it, you know. You know what I mean? You've got enough time to make those decisions. You don't just wait till someone else better comes along, you know. That it's about honour, respect, and you know what I mean.
It's not
on
a whim either, is it? It's not on a whim.
No, I totally agree. You know what I mean? And this is what I don't get. In non-league football, there's a lot of money flying around. You know what I mean? A lot more now. Those 50s now are turning into 300s, you know. So it's a lot more money's available. People are travelling 2 and 3 hours to go and play football. You know what I mean? Because there's more money available 2 and 3 hours away. You know what I mean? It's not about that sometimes. It's about playing at the best level I can and trying to, you know, it was only a short career. You know what I mean? You're only a footballer probably till, you know what I mean, till somebody younger and better comes along. You know what I mean? So your window could be 5, 6, 7 years if you're lucky, you know? So forget this 35 window where everyone talks about you're a footballer till you're 35. It's a myth. You know what I mean? You're a footballer until somebody better takes your place. You know what I mean? And at the minute, you're getting Premier League footballers dropping down to non-league level straight away. It's 18, so the level's getting bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. And the amount of footballers is just phenomenal now. Loads.
Yeah. Do you reckon you'd maybe go into, you know, a management or coaching type of role higher up in the game, maybe in the professional standard?
No, not at the minute. No, we've started a company now, so we look after. You know what I mean? We're like a sport, like an agency, and we manage managers. We don't manage players really. We manage managers. So we've got ex Middlesbrough player Craig Harrison, current manager. We've got some other managers, good managers. Who've got some good jobs, who want to try and get good jobs, and I learn off them, and I like getting those opportunities because I like to see how dedicated they are, and I think to myself, could I be that dedicated? I was that dedicated when I was a part-time manager, but what comes with that is a full-time job, living and breathing it 24/7. You know what I mean? I've got a young family. You know what I mean? Could I give enough time back to it now that I did back then? And I'd probably say no. You know, so I'm quite happy and content now, but I give it a go. For me, it's a stepping stone and a progression. You know what I mean? And for me, I've been at the game too long, managing wise. You know what I mean? To be able to go and do that, and I think it's disrespectful sometimes when you see people getting all these qualifications and think they can go and walk into a job and think that I've got this qualification, I can go and get a job. It's not about that. You know what I mean? It's about learning your stripes. I look at Woody. You know what I mean? Woody was Tony Pulis is number 2 at Stoke. Came to Middlesbrough, is number 2 again. You know what I mean? Earned his stripes, got his opportunity at Middlesbrough, didn't work out. He went out the game a couple of, you know what I mean, for a long time. Then he came in as number 2 under Jason Tindall, and now he's took over again as number 1. You've got to earn your stripes. No one's going to give you that opportunity. You've got to make sure that you're doing your homework and you work with the right people and you give the best opportunity you can to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, now you're hosting the AC Footy Show podcast. What was that all about? How did that decision come about? Did you just want to engage with people who had been in the game type of thing?
Well, it was done by default. I'll be honest. I'm not gonna take credit for it. We were doing a championship show pre-COVID. Just obviously, it made sense with Middlesbrough being in the championship and Cardiff being in the championship, and the amount of followers on social media that getting those to watch and be involved and talk about the championship, what's going on. It's the best league in the world with goals and all the incidents normally. You know what I mean? With what's with the amount of money what's involved, and then obviously COVID hit, and we were a little bit like, what are we going to do? You know, I mean, the season's only, you know what I mean, it's more or less brand new. So we thought, well, we'll try a live guest. We'll go live. We'll try a live guest on a Monday night. So I rang one of my Cardiff ex-teammates and just said, like, would you give it a go? You know, we're thinking about trying it, so I'm going to try it with you. And I gave him a list of things that we were going to ask him, and obviously the live viewers were going to ask whatever they were going to ask. And the feedback was amazing. It worked really well. Everyone seemed to be happy with it, and we got obviously some feedback from other podcasts and things, and some interest from other media outlets, and then we just progressed it on and just sent some cheeky texts out to a couple of people, Emil Heskey and Charlie Adam, and people that I'd come across, and obviously Stewie Downing and stuff, and they all came on, and I was a little bit flabbergasted. And now I'm like a super fan. You know what I mean? That every Monday I get excited, and you know what I mean, that I'm talk about. I'm talking to someone who's had an amazing football career. I'm talking to someone who I've watched. I'm talking about someone who dad's told me about. You know what I mean? Because obviously Jim Platt came on as well, and you know, I just find myself just loving what I do. You know what I mean? I love talking about football. You know what I mean? And then when you hear people talking about the good times or the bad times or the transition in and out of football, or you know what I mean? It's so different. Every single person's got a different story to tell, and that's what makes it unique. You know what I mean? Because, for example, you know, it's no secret that me and Dave Jones fell out my time in Cardiff, and I talked to Klaus Lundigvam 2 weeks ago, and he's best friends with Dave Jones. So there's a little bit, you know what I mean, that I'm not going to get in this slagging match with someone who likes somebody else, because you know what I mean, you're never going to like the same people. And I just like it that everyone's opinion of different people, everyone's opinion of football is so different and vast. It's great, and that's what brings football together. And you know, that's what we used to do this in the pub, didn't we? We used to do it and talk about it on a Saturday afternoon and Saturday night. Where now we talk about more over social media, and it goes out live over whatever podcasts and stuff. And it's, for me, it's just an amazing opportunity for people to relate to your club or to a certain show, and it's great. Love it.
Yeah, to be able to connect with it as well, definitely. You know, you're sharing these different stories that people don't necessarily know about. You know, these are conversations that you and, you know, whoever have had that kind of gives, I don't know, it gives these fans like a locker room type of vibe. It brings them into it, doesn't it, really? And it you know, it makes you human, as daft as it sounds. I mean, I know back in the day, I met Tony Mowbray at the park with his grandkids. I was like, is that Tony Mowbray? Like, he was Boro manager at the time. I couldn't believe it. But in my head, I was like, that's Boro's manager. Like, what is he doing at the park with his grandkids? Like, and it's just it brings that like kind of human value to obviously you guys. That some fans. I remember. Well, it was a couple of years ago. I went and got. I think I went and got my shirt signed, and I'm turning 20 this year, so I was 17 at the time. But the players came into the room, and I had this like butterflies almost. You get these like butterflies, but you've got to realise that these people are human at the end of the day, and by you sharing these stories and, you know, interacting with fans, it's massive.
But I don't think football is a business now, isn't it? You know what I mean? You talk about social media. So players are so sceptical about coming on podcasts, current players, because, you know, young players, because they think that someone's going to stitch them up, think they're going to get put on the spot with a question and things. And I think older players, they enjoy that uncertainty. They enjoy that because some of the stories are already out there. You know what I mean? Because people have sold books, people have done other stories. So, you know what I mean? It's older players and players who've obviously stopped playing. You know what I mean? They're more accessible to get hold of, you know what I mean? And the great, you know what I mean, ex-Boro players or ex-international players, it's, you know what I mean? Because social media wasn't around then. They've got a great story to tell, you know what I mean? There's so many people who've had an amazing career, but like you say, you know what I mean? They can relive their career and tell people how successful they were, because a lot of people won't realise about Wimbledon winning the FA Cup, for example, and Robbie Sanchez scoring the winning goal, or Dave Besson saving the winning penalty, which doesn't happen in an FA Cup final. You know what I mean? There's so many things that people don't realise about football. People just think that Man City used to play at the new stadium all the time. Didn't think about Main Road. You know what I mean? Middlesbrough used to play at Riverside. Yeah. I mean, they don't know about Ayresome Park. And it's so, you know what I mean? It's so wrong, because football it's evolved so much. And it had to, by the way. You know what I mean? It had to. You know what I mean? For football to be as successful it had to evolve. But for me, it used to be a lot more fun back in the day. It used to be great.
So when it comes to, well, I've had a look over your podcast, and I know there's a couple of different other sports as well that you kind of cover. So I was just wondering if it was the type of sport that necessarily like attracted you to a certain person coming in, or it was like the individual themselves. So I know that you cover like UFC and things like that. Yeah. So is it the sport itself that you kind of enjoy watching as well, or is it necessarily like the individual?
Probably a bit of both. I think the sports that have been selected on the channel is sports that we've got an enjoyment of watching. You know what I mean? So UFC, boxing, football, men's, women's. You know what I mean? Managers and stuff, and obviously mental health side as well, because the mental health program is showing it as well. So I think there are areas that we've got an interest in, but then it's the person. You know what I mean? The person who's got a story, and normally the person who's got the biggest story to tell, or I like the people who don't think they've been successful, but I've done my digging. You know what I mean? So I do my research before I go and hit somebody and try and get them to come on, because I want them to raise their profile. I want them to tell everybody and scream from the roof how successful they are, because some of the biggest numbers we've done as a show has been probably the lesser names people. You know what I mean? Everyone probably thinks biggest name I've had on the show is probably Emil Heskey. You know what I mean? And Emil, nearly should have won the Premier League. He's one of England's all-time golden generation. You know what I mean? He was amazing at it. Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, I know. I told him live on the show that he brought me on. But just something like that, you think the numbers are going to be amazing. And listen, they were really good, really strong. But someone who you don't think are going to be good, the numbers go through the roof because people can relate to different people in a way. You know what I mean? People can't relate sometimes to someone who's scored 300 goals in Premier League because no one's ever going to emulate that and copy. Whereas someone can emulate playing 10 games for a club if you're lucky, you know what I mean? Because that's achievable, you know what I mean? If you work hard enough and you dedicate yourself to something, you can achieve something and you can achieve what you want. But you know what I mean? Just the levels of people on there, you know what I mean? If it's fighters, if it's comedians, whatever it may be, it's just everyone's got a story to tell, and I think that's what we like on the show and on the podcast because you know what I mean? It's just so different all the time, and it just makes it enjoyable. It keeps it real, but keeps it relevant. It just keeps it different as well. It doesn't keep it one-toned, you know what I mean? It just keeps everybody on the toes, and I mean, and you know what I mean? We don't normally introduce a guest till quite late. You know, I've got an ex Swansea City and Cardiff City defender midfielder tomorrow, Wales international, David Giles, and I didn't introduce it till today because I just think, you know what I mean? People want me to introduce it on a Tuesday or on Wednesday. You know what I mean? I just keep people guessing because people now are starting to ask who's coming on the show, you know what I mean? So it's them guessing, you know what I mean? So we just throw a few little clues out, you know, because you know who's coming on. We booked up for a few weeks, so it's nice for people to start interacting with us as well as us interacting with them as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so when it comes to all the guests, for example, that you've had on your podcast, right? I know this is a big ask because you've had quite a lot, but if you had to pick one, who would you say your most favourite interview was with?
I had the most fun with Jonathan Greenan. I'll be honest, I thought he was absolutely out of this world. I thought he was so funny. I thought his stories at York City, Man United, Middlesbrough, some of the things he used to say about my brother, because he was a teammate of my brother at York City, was just unbelievable. And the amount of cuts we made from the show, we might as well have just put the show back out there because we cut snippets all the way through, and we had about 30 or 40 minutes worth from an hour and a half show, which is just outrageous. You know what I mean? Of things that we couldn't get rid of. We couldn't throw it away. So it's just, I say Jono was a really, really fun guy. And he wasn't going to do it as well because he didn't do podcasts. And then all of a sudden he did ours. And then all of a sudden, I don't think he's never looked back, and he's told that story loads of times. He's told other stories. It's great. It's great to do, you know what I mean? Because someone like that's just, you know, he's had a great career, and he should be telling everybody about it.
I know, like when you talk about it now, it's quite interesting because you've kind of, like you yourself, without even really realising it, are kind of unlocking these doors for all these other players or like whoever they are in these different sports to, like you say, get their story out there that probably before your show wouldn't have actually told that story. So I think it's amazing that you're doing that as well without both of you really realising that. Yeah,
well, that was always a plan. When I go to somebody with a phone call or a text message, and I say, listen, you know what I mean, this isn't to stitch anybody up. This is to raise people's profiles. And if you want me to raise your profile, you know what I mean, if you want to be a manager and you want people to know you want to be a manager, we had Graham Jones on. Graham Jones is working for Middlesbrough, I think. He's working for the academy. He wants to be a manager in his own right. Graham contacted me and just said, listen, could I come on and tell everybody that I want to be a manager? I can't do Mondays because I coach. I said, well, yeah, what day's good? He said, Fridays. I said, that's fine. I said, I'll cancel the championship show for this 1 week and we'll put a live show on with you. And you tell everybody what you want to tell them. And you know what I mean? It wasn't a case of me being underhand because he had an agent already trying to get. I want to do it for a friend. I want to do it for somebody who wants to raise their profile because he's a Middlesbrough boy. You know what I mean? And he was a very good player back in the day, and he wants to be a coach, and he's got great work ethic. He's got a plan for the future, and I hope he makes it, and I hope our show can help with that stepping stone. Really.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of the podcast in general, then I know, like you say, you've spoke about kind of raising people's profiles and your friends and things. But what's the ultimate goal for this podcast? Where do you want to take it? What's the future for it?
Well, I don't know. I've never really sat down and thought where we want it to keep growing organically. You know what I mean, and see where it was going to go. We're on about doing some live shows. When I mean live, I mean with live audience, going somewhere and probably and doing it around the country, you know, if that works.
Oh,
We'll start obviously the areas that work. So maybe it's Cardiff, Middlesbrough for 2 starters we spoke about, and getting as many people as there as we can, and potentially having a guest come along with us, and making a night of it with a comedian and stuff, and just questions and answers, and doing it that way. But to answer the question, I just want it to progress. I want it to progress in something that I really enjoy doing, you know, and if it helps other people, you know, I mean, the amount of people who've contacted me, because it's something obviously with the mental health side, and I've said that obviously my direct messages are open for every platform, and I say that quite frequently on all the shows, that if it helps somebody, you know what I mean, and that's get through the day, you know what I mean. I mean, James spoke earlier on about working from home and stuff, and it's so difficult for people if you don't go exercise, or you can't exercise, and your kids or whatever, and you know what I mean, it's so difficult for everybody at the minute. So, you know, we're hoping that it helps people, and if it helps one person, then it's done its job, right?